How can you succeed with ADHD as an entrepreneur? Well, here is one person who will explain to you how she was successful as an ADHD entrepreneur. Please welcome Amber Swope. She's the founder of IP by Design. She's a consultant and a content specialist. Amber, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Andre.
We know each other through Strategic Coach. We've had, I don't think we've ever met in person, actually, just through Zoom and some communication outside those structured workshops. But the one thing that really impressed with me is your energy and your drive to actually, I think you're one of the epitome of the people I really respect. Is about self-improvement, self-awareness, and self-refinement. And that's one of the reasons I want to bring you here. But at the same time, you've done a lot in your undiagnosed ADHD journey. And that's what I want to talk about, especially from the point of view of a woman.
Thanks. It is different as a woman. And one of the big challenges is, as you've talked to other guests, is that we don't get diagnosed very often or very early. And you're right. Most of my success has come with a lot of work because I was undiagnosed. I got diagnosed at 56, and it's a funny story, and I can share it if you'd like.
I do, because I do like it, because you told it to me a few times, and I laugh every time because I relate.
Because it's so me, right? So I have systems, right? You know, I always build systems. And when COVID started, my systems started to crumble. And I think like most folks, we were isolated. And one of my clients, who is also a friend of mine, suggested after the first year of COVID, hey, have you ever considered that you have ADHD? And I scoffed, literally scoffed. Like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, that's what boys get. But she knows me. So she said, hey, there is this website that has a quiz. Now she knows I love a quiz. She says, well, I'll take it if you take it. I'm like, oh, sign me up. Like, I am so busy, but you offer me a quiz and you're going to compare your score with mine. I am so there. And so,
Yeah, especially I'll do it if you do it.
yeah, exactly. Challenge accepted. And so we took the quiz, and it's on the ADHD, no, attitudemag.org.
Yeah, Attitude Magazine. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Very well known.
And it was the quiz was how to be an Amber. I think I missed 1 point. And that kind of shook me. I'm like, what? And the questions were mind-blowing to me. The first one that just totally like I had to sit with it for 5 minutes was, do you have music playing in your head? And I'm like, well, doesn't everybody? The idea that people did not have a jukebox playing in their head constantly had never occurred to me, because there's always a jukebox playing in my head.
Yeah.
Are you impulsive? I'm like, does taking my car in for an oil change and being bored and taking a test drive and then trading my car in count? Yeah, apparently it
Pretty
does.
good. Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I even got the same color. My friends didn't even notice the difference, but I had bigger engine, so I was happy.
That's why I love you.
And then I just sat with it. And then we went into the next winter of COVID, and my systems surprisingly did not improve. They continued to degrade after another year of stress. And so in the following spring, I guess it was 2022, I finally reached out to my doctor and got a diagnosis, and then they suggested medication, and I was very resistant. I like who I am. I didn't want to be less of me. And the idea that medication would change me in a fundamental way terrified me. And then I was actually at Coach, and I was talking about this in one of the breakout sessions, and someone told me, "Oh, well, don't think about it as a device to dim you. It's a device to focus you." I'm like,
Yeah.
oh. So then I started the Adderall, and I told my team at the team meeting, I said, I'm going to try Adderall for 2 weeks, and at that next meeting, I'm going to ask for your feedback. 2 weeks passes. I asked them, so have you noticed a difference? And they said, well, yeah, two things. One, in the team meeting, you stick to the agenda. And two, when you ask us a question, you give us time to actually answer it. So team said thumbs up on Adderall. So here we are. And it doesn't diminish who I am. It really is a way to focus and allows me to get corral my ideas. I mean, they don't get in a nice linear line of ducks, right? But at least they're in the same field.
Yep.
So as opposed to being everywhere.
So what do you think your biggest ADHD challenge or obstacle was during your undiagnosed days?
Oh my gosh, where do you even start?
Just start with one.
Um, I could never focus. And I, if I had $1 for every time someone said to me, why can't you just, insert whatever focus-based activity is there?
Right.
I'd be so rich because, focusing, not my strength.
Okay. So focusing on what though? You
Oh, on things
focus
that
on
I
stuff.
don't care about,
Okay.
right?
Now there's a
There's the
differentiator
thing,
there
right?
that the regular world does not quite comprehend and judge us on.
Correct. And
Right.
also, my brain doesn't move at the speed of everybody else's. So I was constantly out of sync.
Right.
So in a class,
Right.
I would get the work done faster or slower than other people. And I would be, daydreaming or not focused because I was already done. I did the work, and that wasn't enough because school systems aren't built for the individual,
Right.
built to make sure that everybody walks a lockstep through a series of exercises. And
Mhm.
I'm never in lockstep with the other people in the room.
Yep. Yeah, I just want to make sure that everyone's understanding here. Like a lot of the comparisons I've heard of talking to other ADHD entrepreneurs is it's always in comparison to everyone else's interpretation or method of focus, what you should be doing, how you, like I said before, I always got in trouble for how I did it, not necessarily getting the result that was requested.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, I did fine in school in
Hmm.
terms of the academics when I decided to actually engage.
Hmm.
But
Because
that,
now you cared or you were interested.
yeah, well, I understood the framework that I had to get a certain level of grade for them to stop hassling me.
Oh, you made a novel.
I just read
Yeah.
the framework and went, okay, here are the gates that they care about. I will hit them. And oh, the timing's important. Okay, I'll hit them this time when that's important to them.
So
But
you
the rest
say,
of the time, that was like 10% of my attention. The rest of the time
right.
in
So it
my
sounds
head.
like that's the achiever part. You set the goals, you understood the framework, which you needed because you had a goal. There's a purpose for you to move forward, not for the system.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. So that was, the being undiagnosed, I look back on it and my educational experience could have been so different.
Huge. I relate to that.
Hugely different. And
Can you
um,
expand on that a little more? What do you mean by that?
yeah,
Because I know a
so
lot of people will relate to it.
my parents sent me to private Christian schools where you would get spanked if you didn't
Hmm.
follow the rules. And you got your name on the board and then if you got 2 check marks next to it, then you get a spanking.
Oh yeah,
And
I remember those.
yeah, in 3rd grade, I would do the best I could. But by Wednesday, I figured out I'm going to get spanked on Wednesday. So maybe this is too much information, but I would wear every pair of my underwear under my clothes every Wednesday because I'm like, well, I physically can't not get my second check, but I can make the spanking not hurt. So I literally
I
just worked
guarantee
the
you there's a
system.
lot of listeners laughing right now because they've done the same thing.
Yeah, and it never even occurred to me to tell my parents,
Hmm.
right? I mean, I just was like, this is the world I live in. I'm what? How old are you in 3rd grade? And so I just figured out the system. I prepared to get beat every Wednesday. And I was so relieved that there were only 5 school days because it would have been twice a week, but it was only every Wednesday and I could
Yeah,
deal with that.
that's really good for the mental health too, right?
Oh yeah, let's not even go there.
That's
No
another day.
emotional scarring and that
Yeah.
involved. Yeah, And, and I internalized that I was a bad child
Oh yeah. Yep.
because I was bad according to their rules. And the most painful part about it was all I wanted to do was be the good kid, to
Hmm.
be the kid that had the good report card and, but that just wasn't going to be in the cards.
Yeah.
No matter how hard I tried. And then by about fifth grade, I stopped trying to fit their, and I just started developing my inner world and doing things that,
Hmm.
read the framework and and the frameworks get more and more clear as you progress through education, at least in the US.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, I would work the system because
Yeah.
it's
I don't
fairly
think,
obvious how to do
well,
it.
that's what you're doing right now as an entrepreneur as well. That's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I think everyone ADHD high achiever, we always work the system because that's the only way we can do it because we never fit in. Is what I
Right.
get.
And so, it was fine.
Yeah.
Not great. And the thing that really changed for me with the ADHD diagnosis and the more I learned about it, was it was like going to the eye doctor and how they do one lens and
Yep.
one, two, one, two, and two dropped into place. And it was like, holy crap.
Yep.
That's what this was. I wasn't a bad kid. I wasn't. And just starting, it's only been 2 years, but I've just been on this emotional,
Well, 2 years is a long time after diagnosis, gaining that clarity.
just to go on this journey to
Yeah.
unpack all these things. And, every time I think I've unpacked everything, please,
Yeah.
no, there's another surprise waiting for when I have a reaction to something. I'm like, wow, that is totally out of proportion, maybe, or
Yeah. Now
not.
you're catching it because of the awareness.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
just learning to unpack all those things um, has it's an education of
Yeah.
your inner life, and I had no
Well,
idea that it was through this. I was seeing myself through other people's lens, and now I'm getting to
right.
see myself through my lens for
Yeah.
the
You're
first
looking at
time.
yourself. Like for me, I couldn't believe the last 40 years could be explained with 4 letters, ADHD. So
Yeah.
let's stop going down this negative rabbit hole, all the negative parts of it. Let's talk about your biggest entrepreneurial success because of your ADHD. What's
I
your big ADHD strength that helps you with your success?
Well, there to me, there's a trifecta of strengths. The first is that I can hyper focus. If I'm
Mhm.
interested, I go to another planet. My head leaves my body. I'm able to make connections that other people simply don't see. And my impulsiveness, I've decided to rebrand as fearlessness
Oh,
because impulsiveness sounds like I'm out of control, which,
again,
let's
that's
be
someone
honest.
else's measuring stick.
Right, versus fearlessness where, I can't tell you how many times a week I say, "Well, how hard can that be? Let's go check that out." And it's always exponentially harder than I could have imagined, but I'm going to try it. I'm going to do things that other people just do not understand. And that's great, right? Because I'm going to go places they don't go.
So we touched a little bit on your diagnosis. You gained a lot of clarity with your analogy with the two glasses, which is right. I never thought of it that way, where you said now you were looking through the world through other people's glasses, which I think is a phenomenal analogy, which explains, like that's the term I use for measure other people's measuring stick. But now you're looking through to the world through your eyes. Um, how has that clarity help you understand that your ADHD strengths and your ADHD challenges helped or opposed each other? And it was there a way now that you are modifying or, tweaking the way you're doing things so you can augment those successes?
Oh yeah, and I just want to make a plug here for the Colby A Index. The being doing going through the exercise of identifying my unique ability was really that first step of understanding and valuing what I can do. And I
Mm-hmm.
think if I hadn't had that, then I would not be anywhere near where I am on the ADHD journey. Because valuing what you can do naturally, I always assumed, well, if I can do it, anybody can do it, right? And
Yeah.
and
And what
then
and what I like about the Colby A, which the listeners know I talk about a lot, it's especially with an ADHD brain, it's understanding clearly getting clarity on how you solve problems every time or how you take action. And it doesn't matter the condition of your brain or what you know. And that really clarifies, like for you, I know being a quick start, resistant follow through really gave validation that that's how you work best, and trying to force yourself to do what's accepted or requested doesn't
Yes.
work.
Well, and that's the other thing is I've reframed everything that says people say is required to requested. It's more of a
Ah.
guideline than a code.
Mm-hmm. So you're doing your journey with a unique ability and getting that clarity.
Yeah, and then the other thing is just, I am really embracing what works for me and trying to shed the habits that do not work for me.
Mm-hmm.
And was interesting listening to your interview with the sleep doctor, because I have an ambiguous relationship with sleep, is how I
Mm-hmm.
refer to it. And knowing that there's a connection, again, I didn't think about it that way. I'm like, oh, okay, well, that's interesting. So, in addition to, me being from a family of night owls and living in a world where I need to be at a desk much earlier than I would naturally like to be, there's,
Mm-hmm.
and I think they call it popcorn brain, where it's bouncing, or I have all these ideas bouncing around. I think of it as pinball brain,
Well,
because
again, someone else's judgment. Pinball
right,
brain
because
I
for
like, because
me,
those are controlled and get points every time you hit some.
yeah, and the other thing about it is I get a dopamine rush, because there's, I get I have an idea and I hit the ball with my lever and it bounces off something else and it lights up and I have another idea, and my brain, instead of trying to turn that off, I love it. I'm just trying to figure out what my rhythm needs to be so that it's not happening at midnight.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Or the rhythm of some based on someone else's. But what I like about what you just explained, like you have a mixture here. You have your initiating quick start, which is all about you're okay with risk and uncertainty, and you're very good at improvisation. Then throw in your ADHD brain, the impulsive thinking part. Those two together makes a ding, 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 ding for sure.
But I do need, and I've found that in order to have the space to enjoy my brain, I have to have systems, and that's my six um, number. And it was funny because you
Well,
had
no,
some,
no, you're referring to your follow through now as a
oh,
six.
true, yes,
Right. I think there's a combination here. Yes, you're six, you need something. But at the same time, too, what a lot of what you're describing is actually not a system like the Colby requires. It's more of a structure. You've structured your environment. So, like my ADC structures model, if you manage the environment, then you get really good with habits and routines. You got that structure, and that helps us focus a lot better and stay within our own rules of engagement that we created.
yeah.
Yours is going to be a
Maybe
little more
again,
systematized than mine because of our Colby differences.
but maybe again, maybe too much information. But I'm not a morning person. I'm up, and I don't remember doing things, and when because my brain's not there. I mean, I don't care necessarily about the mundane. And so I actually have optimized my bathroom shelf
Mhm.
by time of day. So in the morning, I have a shelf and I literally go left to right, and I just go across the shelf. And then at night, I have the next shelf down. I go the
Mhm.
other direction, because if not, I'll forget to put on face cream, or I'll forget to take a supplement, or because that's not where my brain is. My brain's not like, oh, this morning I'm going to remember to take my Flonase.
Well, that's where
No.
executive functioning dysfunction comes into play,
Yes.
right? And I really like, it's not too much information. Like this is a great example of not being upset that you can't remember all these things because everyone else is. You created the system or the structure to not forget. I do that too, because that's just mental energy management. The
Yes.
stuff I don't need to make a decision of, I just really remove. Same type of clothes, blah, blah, blah. All this stuff just removes a decision so that we can have the mental energy later on in the day to make decisions that is required, especially as high achieving entrepreneurs.
Yeah, and it, I've tried to do that with every aspect of my morning routine. It's very ritualistic.
Hmm.
And I've incorporated the, doing a gratitude journal in the morning. Uh, and I list the music that's playing in my head every morning, and I
Hmm.
refer to it as my demented DJ. And I actually share it with folks sometimes, because every morning there's a song playing in my head, right? And so
Yeah.
I write that down. And then based on one of the interviews that you did with somebody, I added another category. Is I identify the person who I want to serve that day. And sometimes
Ah,
it's me, by the way. A lot of times it's one of my clients or one of my partners or even my husband. But sometimes it's me, that today's that this is where my energy needs to be in order for me to have a successful day.
awesome.
And
Awesome.
then I picked three things, two work related and one personal,
Hmm.
because my to-do lists, plural, are redunculous.
Well, they're
And
actually project lists, not to-do lists.
right. And that's where if I can get at the end of the day and I see that I did the two things, or even not even, I don't even need to complete them. I
Hmm.
need to have exerted energy on them because that's where I said I needed to, then I'm happy. And that by making that ritual in my morning, and I think of it as a ritual, not a habit.
No, it
It's
isn't. It's not a habit because you're no longer thinking about it. That's what I decide. I call those routines, but I think I like the term ritual. A habit
well,
is a conscious effort.
that, and it's also meaningful to me. And
Yeah,
I
it's a flow
find it
almost.
again. How do I activate to get into my special powers? How do I
Hmm.
activate to be focused on the right things and making sure that those are the interesting things, right?
Right. So, what piece of advice would you give to the listeners right now? One.
Um, that don't be afraid to know yourself.
Boom.
And to if you suspect, or if you that you may have ADHD, or you have you have some of the characteristics, or someone's informed you that you have the characteristics, as in
Hmm.
my case, uh don't wait. Knowing yourself is the first step on a journey that, you're the only body you get to walk around in for the rest of your life. So why not make the journey a better journey, and avoid the guilt and the shame and recriminations and all that stuff, and walk into that bright place that is your brain if you embrace it.
I like that. You really concentrate on the brain, which is I tell everyone, it's the brain. It's not you and our moral failure. But what you just said reminded me of the quote from Princess Leia to Rey in one of the last three Star Wars movie, when Princess Leia told Rey, "Do not be afraid of who you are."
Yes.
So
And like I said, that I was reticent, and then I just was like, no, I
I
I
know
need
you
to
were
know this.
resistant. When you asked me, we had a chat a while back, and you were asking about it. You weren't too sure if you were going to go through the diagnosis or not, and you
Yeah,
were on the fence too. And honestly, everyone does. Even I was. Um, but
because
in
there's
the
a
end, it's
stigma.
clear there's a
There's a
huge stigma.
and
Well, you've
so
been a failure all your life according to other people, so now that's just another check mark to prove everyone's point, right? That's what it went through my head.
well, that, and also, there's a I've actually had medical professionals actually say things to me like, well, everyone's just getting diagnosed with ADHD so that they,
Yeah.
can get drugs and all this other stuff. And I'm just like, yeah, and I'm never going to speak to you again because
Yep.
you are a moron.
Well, maybe some, but I think it's just the way the medical field
I
it
know, but
has
the,
accepted.
the idea that a medical professional would be that dismissive of
Well, you're
something.
talking to an engineer, and a lot of the professional technical world are very dismissive of new ideas and concepts that were not trained to
Exactly.
you in school. So, the way it's systematic, personality based. But before we go, Amber, please, I want you to discuss what you do and what your unique ability is to the world as we finish off here.
Well, thank you, Andre. So I actually have two companies, both of which offer information architecture consulting services, which is, most folks have no idea what that is. But the easy description is that if you've ever gone to a content portal and you found what you needed with no friction, no delay, and it was a non-event and you just got on with your day, somebody who does what I do was there. And for entrepreneurs, I want them to not just see their content as a check mark that they have to have. I want them to embrace and understand that their content is what can differentiate them from everyone else. And by embracing their methodology and being smart about their content and investing in it, that it's really going to keep you out of being commoditized. And again, it lets you position yourself and show off everything that you've invested in, and that makes you different.
Where can people find you?
They can find me on LinkedIn, Amber Swope. For the entrepreneurial audience, my company's name is Intellectual Property by Design. You can find us at ipxdesign.com.
Nice. Well, I don't know. Usually you've had a lot of great zingers here. Well, I don't know. I don't think zinger is the wrong term. I don't know where that came from, but 3 things that you just said where I think like everyone who has ADHD or is about going through the transition or getting diagnosed all think the same thing here. So what I liked at the beginning, you repeated a lot of what people believe or think. Doesn't everybody do this? Have a racing head, having music in my ears, or see all these obvious missing holes, but they've been staring at it for 2 years. And what I really liked you said is, that our brains are constantly out of sync with others. And for some reason, that's a problem because, well, I think a lot of times they don't understand why there was out of sync, but now that we're out of sync, now that my brain goes a lot faster than most, either I try to find the right people or I understand it. And there's a lot of different ways around it. And what COVID did do, like you opened up, I don't know if you realize what you're actually saying. You had a structure pre-COVID. COVID now disrupted all the structure that was working for you when you were leaving the house. Now you're not. You're at the house, or the world kind of changed your structure. And with that, not knowing ADHD is how your brain is wired really threw you for a loop and didn't know what to do because your brain now went in constant overwhelm. So those are 3 fantastic points that for the listeners, you're heard. We all feel this way. And yes, not everyone, but some of us have music in our head, and I really like that. And the final thing, what Amber did say was embrace what works for you and shed what doesn't. That's what we talk about here at Tactical Breakthroughs. Find out what you're an awesome, really good at, and that you want to do every day, and everything else gets shed or pushed on to someone else. So wrapping up, I got a question for the listener. As Amber says, she writes down almost every day. Who do you want to serve today? I would like to hear what you have to say about that. Email me at andre@tacticalbts.com. We greatly appreciate it. And Amber, never a dull moment with you. And you're you're really great talk. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity, Andre. Let's talk again sometime.
We will. And to you, the listener, thanks for learning with me. Take care.